So you do believe there's a big place for puppetry in the future of our world as it stands here, with so much technology, where everybody is just stuck in a screen.
It is the antidote to all the computers, cell phones that which children are now becoming addicted to.
Welcome to Anthroposophical Conversations, the podcast where we explore the transformative teachings of Rudolf Steiner and engage in insightful discussions with individuals studying anthroposophy.
Welcome to Anthroposophical Conversations. I'm Telana, and today I want to introduce you to one of the most well-known puppeteers in South Africa and probably the world, Estelle Bryer. Estelle is going to share with us the role that anthroposophy has played in her craft, as well as what Rudolf Steiner has said about puppetry and its importance for children. Welcome, Estelle, and who have we got with you there?
I've got Zuzu with me. Hooray! Yeah, this is the most beloved puppet of the whole lot. She is so well known. Her name is Zuzu, and she was just born for me. I went to Kirstenbosch Market once, and a woman was trying to sell puppets, and there were these horrible flat felt puppets. They were awful. And she was saying, who wants to buy a puppet? And I said, you can't buy a puppet unless you love them. You can't sell them. And she said, well, how would you do it? And I looked around, and this was the only other puppet there. And it looked at me and just said, please buy me, save me. And I saved you tonight, Zuzu. Yes.
Oh, Zuzu. So you've known Zuzu for many years then?
Yeah. But to start at the beginning, I've got quite a few professions. I'm a kindergarten teacher and fully qualified by the Department of Education, also the first teacher in the whole country, first Waldorf teacher in the whole country. And I'll come to that later. And then I'm also a eurythmist and a curative eurythmist and a puppeteer, and I write poetry. So there you have the whole thing. And I was schooled in that by birth, because when I was born, my mother had a stroke and she could never speak. So I could never hear my mother speak, and she was half paralyzed. And I could hear behind the sound, and she would go, "Bah, bah," and I'd say, Mom, do you mean this? And I had to penetrate into the sound. And curative is penetrating into sound. And somehow my professions have to do with that. My father believed in education. So from a very early age, I used to do music, elocution, dancing. So that was the whole foundation to the eurythmy, to puppetry, you name it. And I was born and bred in Bloemfontein, not Bloemfontein, Bloemfontein. Although I was in the English section, put it that way. When I left school, with a Jewish background, and then when I left school, I started art in Johannesburg. And then I shared a room with my cousin who was studying kindergarten teacher. And I'd had no connection with children whatsoever because of my mother's condition, really. But I liked helping my cousin with her homework. And so for that reason only, I switched to kindergarten teaching. So I studied kindergarten teaching, but I failed one subject, and that was part of my art, and which had to do with you can say a more creative side of it. I didn't have a room that was big enough to cope for it. And so I thought, oh, well, I don't really need my kindergarten diploma. I'm marrying a rich chap, which I did. And then I had my own 2 daughters. And then I developed such a love for children for the first time. And I thought, it's crazy. I don't have my diploma. And so out of the blue, I made a set of puppets. I'd never seen them before. And they were hot like rocks. And I flew up to Johannesburg, and she must have seen my sincerity. So I got my diploma. That was 7 years after I finished my course. And then we were living in Port Elizabeth, my husband and we were spiritualists. They used to go to seances. And then we met by chance Basil Jabot.
And from there?
And he asked us to come to a meeting,
Okay.
which we did. And who was at the meeting? It was Dr. Koenig. And he gave a talk, and we were absolutely captured. So it was in Port Elizabeth I was 27 years old, and that is the age when things really happen in your life, at the age of 27. And immediately we wanted to have Waldorf education for our children, and there was no Waldorf school anywhere in the country. And then who was it who came around? Some anthroposophical doctor. And she said, no. And we had a beautiful home. So they stayed with us. And she said, no, you'll have to go and find out what a Waldorf kindergarten is like. So I flew to Holland. I had a look. Immediately I was sold. We heard that the Waldorf school was going to open in Cape Town. So we sold up everything in Port Elizabeth, and we came to Cape Town. Well, school started on the Monday. We arrived on the Sunday.
Wow.
On the Monday, we went to school. There was no kindergarten teacher because she got pregnant and she had all sorts of things wrong. So I stepped in immediately on the first day of school as the kindergarten teacher. And then Lida Broilich had a little play group in her garage at home. So Margaret Meyercourt from England, she was the kindergarten teacher trainer, and she came out to Cape Town to help Lida and I. So there I was, the first kindergarten teacher, trying my darndest, and my daughters at the Waldorf school, and my one daughter's class teacher, her name was Felicitas Fussy.
Okay.
And Fussy said, I'm a puppeteer. Who wants to join me? I said, me. And it turned out that she was the finest puppeteer I have ever seen in all these years of puppetry, and that's donkey's years all over the world. She was really the best. So I went out with her and her puppet theater, and we did puppet shows everywhere, earning money to buy instruments for her class orchestra. And then there was Lieselotte Maurer, the wife then of Heinz Maurer, who was the priest, who became the first priest of the Christian community. She was also a puppeteer. So I saw her puppet show, but I didn't like it very much, I'm afraid. So that was my introduction to puppetry. And then what was the next thing? If I stick to the puppetry side of it. My husband started a toy factory called Ravages. It was a very beautiful factory. And it went too big, too quickly, making all sorts of woodware. So I got Tony Pritchard, who was working for him, and who was quite a well-known anthropop in those days. And he made a puppet theater for me. And then I made some puppets, and I used to go out and do puppet shows for birthdays. And I loved it. I loved the reaction of the children. I mean, I have never, ever in all my donkey's years of puppetry had any misbehavior in the audience. They're all glued to puppets every time. So I used to go out and do puppet shows for birthdays. And then I thought, this is a good thing. So I put an advertisement in the paper. And I used to go out everywhere doing puppet shows for birthdays. And then my marriage broke up. Unfortunately, the factory folded. And I was left in a miserable little flat with my 2 daughters and no money. And I was teaching in the mornings at the Waldorf School. And so I used to go out with my puppet theater to earn money. And that worked very well. And I loved doing it. And then after that, I saw an advertisement in the paper that it was actually the headlines, and it said, children in Mitchell's Plain, the crime rate has gone up, I think it was a few 100% in 3 years.
Wow.
And I thought, that's crazy.
That is.
And in my kindergarten, I had one little boy who became naughty suddenly. And he said, there's a grey witch inside me. It's making me naughty. And I made up a story called Jason and the Grey Witch. And I thought, gosh, this story is absolutely superb for these children in Mitchell's Plain. It's anti-hooliganism, anti-shoplifting, anti-everything. And it's a real Micah Alick story, bar none. I've even had it published in, you know, anthroposophically. It's really good. So I made a set of colored puppets because I was going into the colored areas and they would, you know, appreciate it more. And I started doing puppet shows for the colored schools. And every time I would phone up the principal and say, I've got a puppet show, do you want one? And he'd say, how much? First thing, of course, how much?
Yes.
And I thought, this is no good. So then I took my puppets to Woolworths head office, Checkers head office, all these Pick and Pay head office, and I talked to them, how many schools will you sponsor?
That's clever.
So like Checkers said, I'll sponsor 6 schools. I'll phone the headmaster, Checkers will sponsor you. So then I would go out and I'd do puppet shows to the schools. I've got photographs somewhere of a couple of 100 children in the audience at a time. Not a whisper, nothing, quiet, absolutely superb. I forgot to tell you this. Here I've got Rudolf Steiner said, puppetry is a remedy against the damage of modern civilization. It must unfold and develop the fantasy of the child. And then later on, he said, puppetry is the art of the future.
Yeah.
I'll come to that when I talk about the Rainbow Puppet Theatre, because puppetry can contain within it all the arts of architecture, of music, of painting, of every possible, all the arts according to their developments. And it's really, you know, blossoming now. Anyway, to get back to the colored children and the colored school in the townships. And I went to so many schools at the whole of the Western Cape. And I went to all the, where you wouldn't dare go. Sometimes I used to phone the police beforehand to find out if it was safe to go. And
can I ask, what was the impact on the children of all these puppet shows?
I couldn't follow up the exact impact, but they were sitting there absolutely with their mouths open. And, you know, it has I mean, puppetry gets through to children better than any other medium you can possibly think of. It's something they will never forget, ever. It really goes so deep. And this had such a moral quality, and it was a Michaelic story, and all about how this grey witch influenced this boy, Jace, to become naughty and to become evil, and he liked it. And then he had this vision. I had this puppet of an angel with a sword, you know, and that really transformed him, and he became good. And so then one headmistress in one of the black schools, she said, we want it in our townships. And I thought, oh my God, now what do I do? Because you can't just take, then I had my story translated into Afrikaans.
As well.
And I had it on a tape recorder because my Afrikaans wasn't that good. So I had the tape recorder going. And she said, no, we must have it in Xhosa. So I made a set of black puppets. And I thought, now, I had the story translated into Xhosa, but the songs I couldn't, because they needed Xhosa songs. You can't have the Afrikaans songs or the English songs with a Xhosa puppet show.
Yes.
So I went to the Department of African Studies, and I spoke to the professor there, and she said, no, you must have the Xhosa songs. So then I had recordings made of some of the Xhosa songs, this and you know, the popular ones. Yes. And those were all in the puppet show. So then in Dornach, they heard about my puppetry, and they wanted me to come to they had a huge big conference and workshops, etc. for puppeteers. So they made me a puppet theatre according to my specifications.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
Yeah. So I went over, and they were very impressed because I'd done puppetry to so many children, so many schools, and I had all the principals write out how many children were at the performances, and altogether it was nearly 1 million children.
Wow.
Yeah. And so Dr. Bezons was then in charge of the art section in Dornach at the Goetheanum. And this was before computers and all this stuff appeared.
Yes. Yes.
And I mean, some of the people there said, "Oh, you can't have a tape recorder." I took my tape with. You can't have a tape recorder in the Goetheanum. It's forbidden. You can't have a tape recorder. And Dr. Bezos stood up and he introduced me and he said, she can have a tape recorder. So with the tape recorder, I did my Jason and the Grey Witch in Kosa.
In Kosa,
Told them
wonderful.
the whole story first. If they all wanted to take me out for lunch afterwards, I was a great hit. It was really big time. So after that, what came next? I made a thing. And then when I came back, I really had to earn money. I had my 2 teenage daughters and we're still living fairly poorly. And I used to do puppet shows, for example, at High Rustenburg Hydro. I used to give talks there and eurythmy classes to all the hoi polloi who used to go to the High Rustenburg Hydro. That was the sort of, upmarket place. And I did that every Thursday. It was wonderful. I used to go out there and I would have a massage, free massage and free dinner. Then I would give my eurythmy class and all sorts of things like that and still get paid for it on top of it all. And then they said, can't you do a puppet show? Because they heard about my puppetry. And I said, I'll try. Now with my eurythmy classes, I used to talk first about the fourfold human being, physical, etheric, etc., and give a more modern version of it all, because none of them had heard of anthroposophy, none of the audience. Yeah. So I thought, well, puppet show, yeah. So I worked out a talk on the threefold human being. And I took my puppet theater there and I gave a puppet show of Mother Holle, which is self-explanatory, the whole story. And then I told them about the 7-year periods in the child's life and the Waldorf schools. And I gave the Waldorf education a big boost there. So that was another thing that I did. I used to do puppet shows at the waterfront, shopping centers, birthday parties, and the huge shopping centers, and the shopping center became quiet. And the people on the first floor used to look down, and they were also captured, as well as the children who sat on the ground.
So can I ask, what is it? Sorry, Estelle, to interrupt, because you keep talking about this, how the audience gets so captivated by puppets. What do you think it is about the puppets that we find so captivating, that we are so enthralled by them?
Well, you see, because I'm also a eurythmist, I've got a quality that you don't quite find with other puppeteers. Some of the anthroposophical puppetry, which is really developing now in a big way. And I'm the honorary member of the World Anthroposophical WAPASA, I think it's called, World Anthroposophical Puppetry Association, which is really developing. I've developed a quality of ensouling puppets. So I've given talks and demonstrations on how to ensoul a puppet. And I've done that in England, in America, in Europe, certainly in South Africa, because that's a quality that they don't quite have. Because then I go into the eurythmy forms, you know, what the L, what the hand is, the thinking, the feeling, the willing, how to bring this into etheric aspects, to ensoul the puppet with your feeling. So you have to be a channel. You've got to be the angel of the puppet. You've got to guide it. You've got to get into it, no matter what the puppet is. How it walks, how it talks, the connection of it. I mean, look at this. Can you see?
Yes, the raccoon.
I'd be so quick. Hey, what are you doing here? Oh, you always wanted to come. And I find that when the puppet talks, it takes something away with a connection with the children. Under certain circumstances, it can. But otherwise, I am the soul aspect of the puppet. Like Zuzu. Now, Zuzu could just be a puppet, huh? Talking like that. But now, Zuzu, what is this all about? Oh, Zuzu, I'm talking to this lady on the screen.
Hello, Zuzu. Hello.
Yes, she's very pretty.
Thank you, Zuzu.
Yes, she's got nice teeth too. You see, I'm the go-between.
Yes.
And in this way, I can really enliven them. And I have people stopping me in the street and saying, are you the lady with the monkey? So with puppetry, I'm very well known. I mean,
oh, this is delightful. Who is this one?
no, I made one like him, the donkey, where I could wiggle his ears as well. I mean, ask me to make a puppet now, I wouldn't be able to. I'm past it. But people remark at what I'm like at my age, which isn't too bad, and that's because of eurythmy and puppetry. With this one,
Oh, yes, look at that. It's a little lamb.
that's my little lammy. Hey, lammy. And this little lamb I used to take to the Red Cross Children's Hospital sometimes and go to the children who were lying in the bed, who was really sick, and they couldn't speak or hardly, they'd had operations. And the little lamb would go up to them. And then, what's the matter, Lammy? I know she's sick. What's wrong with her? You go and find out. All right, she'll tell me. And then I would be the go-between, and the patient would tell the lamb things that it wouldn't even tell the doctor, because little Lammy was safe space.
Yes, look at that.
You know what I mean?
I can see it, yes. And that's even just through a screen. So you really have contributed so much to so many children in our country. I would just say thank you. Look,
and
wow.
what I did is that every time, if I saw something beautiful in a shop, a lovely toy, I would take it and I would cut it open, take the stuffing out and turn it into a puppet.
Wow.
And I saw one like this at the airport going to England. And I thought, I can't take that all the way to England. I'll get it on the way back. And then I couldn't find it. For 2 years, I looked for one exactly like the one I saw. And I saw it in a toy shop. So I cut it open at the back here.
Yes.
And I put something in whereby I could hold it. Now watch. Wait. You also want to go there? No, you can't.
Hello.
His name's Oscar.
Hello, Oscar.
And Oscar is gorgeous. Yes, Oscar. I know you love me. And the eye contact is so important. And then the most important thing, if I still got time, I hope, because
yes.
this is the most important thing,
yes,
is that when I went to this in Dornach, the puppetry conference, and I thought, oh gosh, in my doll's corner, if I can transform that into a theater, a puppet theater. And I looked around, I went to look at puppet theaters in Switzerland, and, and then at the Sonnenhof, which is a home just down the hill from the Goetheanum, there was the perfect puppet theater, absolutely perfect. So I got a tape measure, I took all the measurements, I drew everything to do with it, every single thing. I brought it home. And then there was Tony Pritchard in that day. He designed the facade with cut corners.
Okay.
And I couldn't get anyone to make it because it was too complicated. And I took the plans to various, people. And they said, no, can't do it. And then I took it into the woodwork room at school and I showed it to the woodwork teacher. And I said, they can't do it, they can't do it. And just then there was a man who was on sabbatical from, he was a woodwork teacher in Norway or Denmark, I think. And he looked at the plan and he said, I'll do it for you. And he created the theater. I don't know, let me try and take this out here and show you. The Rainbow Puppet Theater.
Yeah, it looks quite simple. It's like a bench, is it, with some windows on top of it? Is that right?
Bench,
it's pink color.
and high up there, the doors that you open up, and the storyteller sits in the front there. I don't know.
Yes, on the chair.
See?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a chair in
and
the
she
front.
tells the story and then opens up and lights a candle and opens up the theater at the top. And it's a very
over.
big theatre. It's a whole wall. Huh?
Yes.
And then they sing Over the Rainbow, because that is the song for children, you know, because what is the rainbow? It's the bridge to the spiritual world, and the puppet theatre is the bridge into another world altogether.
Yes.
Anyway.
So is that how the Rainbow Puppet Theatre got its name? It's because of the rainbow being the bridge to another world. And that's still going, right?
In the country, there was the Rainbow Nation, the Rainbow this, the Rainbow that. Everything was rainbow.
Yes.
You know, at that time. And I thought, shall I change the name? No, because this is the real meaning of the rainbow. So it's the Rainbow Puppet Theatre. It had to close down. It takes about 4 or 5 people backstage in order to perform. And altogether, I made how many? I think it was 16 different puppet shows. And I've got there's my book that I wrote of the Rainbow Puppet Theatre.
Book, yes.
With all its plays.
So if anyone wants to know more about those plays and the theatre,
yes, it was
would be
published by Weekend.
I'll put a link in it in connection with this podcast.
The Rainbow Puppet Theatre book, and it gives all the contents of all the stories. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different plays are made with all the puppets, about 150 puppets. And in the meantime, I was also teaching and doing curative eurythmy.
You've been very, very busy in your year. So can I just check the Rainbow Puppet Theatre? That's still going today. I know you said
now
it
started up again. Now it started. I trained a team. I've had many teams. They're about at the Waldorf School in the kindergarten building. It seats 120 people. And the children sit on the floor, the adults usually on all the chairs. And it started up again, and 2 weeks ago they had the puppet show of St. George and the Dragon. I'd made a beautiful dragon. And it was full house both times, so it's about 240 people, 2 shows.
And so people
and now it's going on again. I gave it over to the people who were the puppetry group then a few years ago. And I said, now look, and I gave the puppet theatre to the Waldorf School as a present. My gosh, what a gift.
With all its puppets.
And then I even had shadow theatre there as well, combined.
What is shadow theatre?
Well, shadow theatre, that's another whole subject. With Bryer Rose, I had the shadow theatre because the prince had to climb up and go right to the very top, you know, where she was lying on the bed in shadow form, and could only do it with shadows.
All right.
Too complicated to explain.
No, that helps. So it's using the combination of shadows and the actual puppets to tell the story.
The combination, yeah. And one huge big puppet workshop conference I went to in New York State with Janine Ping. She's a wonderful puppeteer. And she's got a puppet theatre as part of her kindergarten, and it's got 3 phases, one for the spiritual world, one for the earthly world, and one for the elemental world, all interacting.
Wow.
So there one can see how puppetry can become the art of the future. You can incorporate everything. And what else was I going to say to do? Oh, with the Rainbow Theatre. So that has started up again. And I can see that, you know, I want to help because some of them don't know how to ensoul puppets. And they have the puppets walking like this across the stage instead of, you've got to imagine the knees, you've got to imagine the feet of the puppet when it's walking, and it's got to walk properly. And like, you know, if I ever get a talk on puppetry, I demonstrate the temperaments, because you have the choleric walking along like this.
Yes.
You have the sanguine. And you have the melancholic going like this. Phlegmatic. And I use the same puppet and demonstrate the temperaments. But I'll tell you one thing that I did that, as far as I know, has never been done. Not in the anthroposophical world. And I called it, there the group was going through problems in the society, and then we had sold the house where we had our meetings, and we were looking for somewhere else, and should we do this, and should we do, it was impossible. And I made what I called the anthropuppets. So I made look-alike puppets, and I had no idea I could do it. I had no idea. I asked, which was Tony in those days, please make look-alike puppets of these particular people. And he said, when I come back from Joburg. And I thought, let me try. So I took a lump of clay and I started modeling it. And all of a sudden, the first puppet I made was John Coates. His face looked at me. And I thought, I can do it. So I made puppets of all the leading anthroposophists in Cape Town. And I called them the anthropuppets. And then I made skits out of this. For example, where can we've got to find new headquarters. And then I had the scenery in the Rainbow Puppet Theatre and these were all at night for the anthropops.
Yes.
The whole thing. And I mean, if you had a puppet made of yourself, you were famous. And so they came to the castle, and there's Bryer Rose was supposed to be asleep in the castle. And there in front was the thorn hedge. And it had to be turned into a rose hedge. So all came the anthropuppets walking along. How are we going to, we can take over the castle. She's going to sleep for 100 years. So nobody will know. But how do we turn the thorn hedge into roses? You know? And all this whole Michaelic sort of debating about how to turn thorns into roses. And then came Ralph Shepherd, and he was the one who started Novalis. And he always had the Japanese input of money. And he came along flying over the top in the puppet theatre with his Superman cape on. And there came Ralph Shepherd down, stood there, and he said, no problem, we'll build a bridge over the hedge, and I'll slap the Japanese logo on, and they can pay for it. So, I mean, taking the mickey out of situations like you wouldn't believe, like one with Red Riding Hood. In the middle of the story, along came the anthropuppets who were lost in the woods and they couldn't find their way. And they were having meeting after meeting. How do we get out of the problems? So, you know, and the audience were just shrieking with laughter because it was so funny.
Yes.
And I had one where the king puppet, who was Harry Stodel, I mean, most of them have died since then. So Harry Stodel was the king and Sigrid Quernau was the princess. And Sigrid and, what's his name? I just said his name. Anyway, he and Sigrid couldn't get on together. And they didn't like each other. So the king puppet said, whoever kills the dragon can marry my daughter. And Sigrid was the daughter, you see. Ralph Shepherd was the one.
That's it.
And yeah, so then came the puppet of Michael Grimley. And the two of them were fighting. And I had a puppet of Beverly. And they were caricatures, but spot on. You could see them straight away. And then, who was it? Ralph Shepherd stuck the spear into the dragon and Michael Grimley stood on the dragon's tail. So who killed the dragon? Nobody knew. So I had a puppet of Julian Slee, who was the priest then, you know, with his collar. And he came with his choleric walk and he said, well, so of course it was Ralph Shepherd, that puppet, he killed the dragon. So he had to marry Sigrid. And just then, Michael Grimley had met Bryer. And nobody knew about it. I mean, everyone knew, but
it was quiet. Yeah.
So it
these
was
are
quiet.
wonderful. Yeah.
And he said, oh, well, even if I don't console myself in my garden, in the briar patch with the roses, you know, and the audience just shrieked with laughter. So you see what you can do with puppets, huh?
So did those skits lift the spirits of the community that was having all that trouble? You said they were finding it difficult to move forward. So what impact did those skits have for the people in the community, especially because they were personified?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that properly.
So those skits that you did with the community, where you personified certain of the leaders in the community in those skits,
yeah,
did it assist them as a community to laugh at themselves maybe, or to
yes,
forward?
absolutely, because it brought all the problems that were going on in the society. It made a joke of everything. And I interwove that with fairy tales. And it was a great success. And they all wanted puppets made of them. So anyway, for me, when I see children with their mouths open, absolutely absorbed in puppetry, I've never had any problem with any child in any audience. Because if you live into the puppet, if you are the guardian angel of the puppets, it goes through to the children. My daughter in America, she and her husband, they're now 69 or something, they were musicians here. And they said, we won't be puppeteers just because you and Janny are. Janny's my other daughter. don't expect us to. And then I made a puppet theater with the family once, and puppets, and 2 puppet shows, and we filmed it, and she, for 2-3 years, she didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. Then all of a sudden, we've got a guilty conscience. We've decided to do a puppet show. So they still, after all these years and years, are doing puppet shows for birthdays in their late 60s. My daughter in England, who's the head of the kindergarten movement for England and on the big Vorstand there in the, what is it, Eerswecker, the big society kindergarten movement. She's on the board.
Okay.
And she wants to get back to her puppetry because she's now, you know, resigned from there. She said she's over 70. So
it seems like a very captivating, wonderful craft. You've spoken a lot then, and just to see if there's anything else from anthroposophy that, because it sounds like there's 2 aspects. One is you've learned how to enfold the puppet. That, I think, from anthroposophy, has helped you to understand that. And then also the stories you tell with anthroposophical principles in order to help the audience. Would I be correct there?
Well, you see, I do a lot of, I did in the Rainbow Puppet Theatre, and they still do. All the Grimm's fairy tales, well, not all, there are too many, but masses of Grimm's fairy tales. And the puppeteers are supposed to know the background and the spiritual background of these fairy tales. And they've all got backgrounds, and all this preparation goes into the audience, into the children. And the Grimm's fairy tales, those that I've chosen, have a very beneficial effect on children.
So when you say those stories have a beneficial impact on the children, in what way?
Yeah. Well, they told in all the Waldorf kindergartens. Huh?
Is it just to engage their imagination, or is it the morals in the stories?
Oh, it really, how should one say? They've got a very, very long history going right back, you can say, more or less into the spiritual world, and giving the history of the human being.
Wow, okay, so there's a lot to certain fairy tales.
There's a heck of a lot to it.
Are there any other core principles or concepts then from anthroposophy that anyone who would be interested in puppetry and childhood development should explore? Any other principles besides the fairy tales, the depths behind them, the ensouling of the actual puppets?
Well, I mean, any Waldorf school, kindergarten, in their parent evenings or anything like that, the teacher should be able to give some insight into the fairy tales themselves and the effect that they could have on children. Huh?
I'm just here. So obviously anthroposophy has influenced so much of what you've done. Yes, you can see a few pictures there of your puppets. Yeah, Hansel and Gretel, the little donkey, I think it is. So they look beautiful.
They're very, very beautiful. Bryer Rose, even here with Bryer Rose, when you have all the when she goes to sleep, or the angels come and they bless her when she's born. And there are all the angels.
Yes,
if you
all
can
the
see,
brighter colors.
and they're all in every color of the rainbow.
Yes.
No, every color of the zodiac. I'm sorry, the zodiac.
Yes, I can see you. Reds, yellows, greens, blues, violets, purples.
Yeah.
Yeah, white.
And then they bring the blessing also to do with the zodiac. Huh?
Yeah.
And they do the harmonic 8 coming into on the stage. So it's like a eurythmy form, and they bring the blessing to the baby, and they say, I wish that when she grows up, she will be like this. And then it's all according to the zodiac.
Mm.
So, I mean, it interpenetrates. There, if you can see, perhaps.
It looks like quite a scene there.
Yeah, that's part of the Bryer Rose thing.
Bryer Rose, okay.
Yeah, where he has to wake her up. And there are all the roses. Can you see the rose hedge?
There, the rose hedge, yeah. Looks like a curtain full of roses that she shows.
Yeah, I painted every one of those blooming roses myself.
So yeah, you've been very involved, hands-on in more ways than just the puppet. So maybe let's touch a bit.
You see it high up the stage, so you can see from anywhere.
Yes. So
there's
all
no
the
problem about see.
Yes.
And then if you have the background, I don't know if you can see that. They're the puppeteers. Where's it? This side.
Is it the other way? That way, yes. Oh, there they are with their, yes. I can see, for those that can't see the screen, the hands are literally above their heads with the puppets on
like
top.
this,
Yeah.
high up. There.
High up.
There's the stage. And they've got to move them along like that. So the stage is high so that the whole audience can see.
You must have been very fit as well then, to be holding puppets so high.
Well, I also showed them how when their arms got tired, the eurythmy E, which is the stretching here.
Yes.
That's the E in eurythmy. And if they could get into the quality of the E, their arms wouldn't be tired. So, you know, everything is interspersed, huh?
Yes. I can hear very much how anthroposophy is within the people behind the puppets, in the actual story, in the way it's built. There's fairy tales. So so
and I would send them out, and then I was even on the radio sort of talking about the Rainbow Puppet Theatre, and
so that's in Cape Town, and people can find out more about the Rainbow Puppet Theatre by finding it on Facebook.
Constantia.
Yes.
Rudolf Constantia.
So let's come, get us talking a bit about the future before we wrap up. So you said that puppets are very much part of, I can't remember how you worded it, the future, but how do you see then the future of puppetry evolving? You said it's really starting to grow.
Well, one of the eurythmists here did something to do with color therapy or color in eurythmy. And I was really bowled over by that. It was very, very good. And then I was thinking about how one can bring all spiritual aspects or anything about the angelic world with a backdrop in color. So you have all the angels or whatever there, and they could even converse, or I haven't thought it out because it won't be my problem, but I can pass it on. And then you have the physical world where the puppets themselves can have their problems. And then you can say the guardian angels, or how it would work, I don't know. And then you have the elemental world down below. So that's something for the future for somebody else to work out. I'm a little bit too old for that.
So yeah, so that sounds like telling the story with the 3 layers of puppets.
That's right.
Right.
Physical, yeah.
Yeah, elemental and the angel world. Well, if anyone out there is listening to this and wants to take on the challenge, just get in touch with Estelle and she'll pass on, I'm sure, some of her ideas. So you do believe there's a big place for puppetry in the future of our world as it stands here, with so much technology, where everybody is just stuck in a screen.
It is the antidote to all the computers, cell phones that which children are now becoming addicted to. It's really an addiction, and this is the antidote.
So
and I can, if I put a puppet on my hand, I can capture any child, and no matter what the color skin, you know.
Yeah. So it's very important.
For children, it's all important. What they've got to face is just horrific. And then I had my puppet theaters. And, you know, I've been very well guided all my life. I've had a very good connection with my guardian angel, and things happen at the, you know, when they're supposed to. And both my daughters said, Mom, this was quite a time ago. You are not to put those puppet theaters in the boot of your car anymore. It's far too heavy for you to carry. They were made out of plywood. And if I went to a shopping center or anything like that, it was impossible. I mean, with the speaker system and then I'd heard of the puppet pocket aprons.
Say that again.
And I thought, oh, what that is. Puppet pocket aprons.
Okay.
Yeah. And I thought, now, what is that? And I went to a Callisto conference in California once. And we went to the Rawhide Waldorf School. And a woman came round and she had, she said, would you like, what was it, garlic roll? And I said, no, thank you. And she turned to walk away. And I said, oh, do you teach at this school? And she turned around and looked at me. She came back and she said, no, I'm a puppeteer. And I said, do you know anything about puppet aprons? And she said, yes, that's what I do. I said, put it down and come and talk to me. So these are aprons. They are wonderful. I don't know if I've got any photographs of them. I should have. I've made all sorts of things. They are, well, I'll just tell you about them. They are aprons just that you wear in the front, tie at the back. And they've got all puppet pockets on them.
Yes.
So they can have 10 pockets or whatever. And each pocket is beautifully embroidered or painted or whatever. And in each pocket, there are 1 or 2 finger puppets. Little puppets that fit on your finger. Huh? And then with a song, you can go, you know, I developed so many techniques for it. But you could carry the whole puppet theater in a little basket.
Yes.
Weigh nothing. And I'd say, finger, finger, tell me true, which one will it be? And going into pointing to the pocket and taking out the little puppets, and they talk to each other, and then I talk to them, and then they talk to each other. And then, you know, this interweaving with a little story or songs or whatever, and getting the children to join in. And with this puppet apron, I used to go everywhere and do puppet shows for birthdays. I've been to lots of homes. I used to love going to the homes for the colored people, because this lovely feeling like I was part of them immediately I walked in the door. And the parents have to be at the back, and they try to bring food into the children. And I very firmly, no, you stand by the door. Please don't interfere with the show. Authoritative voice, you know.
Yes.
And then I go to another kind of person, another kind of puppetry, and I've got to suss it out, how to be and how to act and how to react. So, but the children are all the same. They love the puppets.
They love the puppets.
And I've got another, like this is a little finger puppet. But you put a cloth over your hand, whatever. I got this for my other puppet, look. Hello, little ducky. How are you today? You're not feeling very well. What's the matter? Oh, what's the matter? Have you been fighting? Who have you been fighting with? You see, it's this feeling between the puppet and myself that goes through to the children. Because you can have a puppet on your finger and it can be quite dead, like most puppeteers. And it doesn't get through, but it's a feeling between you and the other. Oh, one big puppet thing I went to in Nairobi once, big international puppet show. This was made, and I've done it with the parents. And this is a toilet roll. The inside of the toilet roll.
Oh, yes.
And I cut it like that.
Yes, I can see. Cut the back out with a strap to go around your fingers.
Yeah, I can put my fingers in. And you know what this is?
It looks like an egg. The hat of the little lady, that's the finger puppet, has one of those egg containers as a hat. Yes. And then this
and you can even just draw the eyes and the mouth. And all I had to do was just this
piece of cloth, just to cover the bottom of the.
Do a bit of something on. And look,
and then
you can do two of them and they can dance together.
So just for those that can't see the video, it's your two fingers that go through the toilet roll become the legs of the puppet.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I thought that was so clever.
That is very easy way to make puppets.
So you see, if you have the imagination, there is no end to it.
Yes.
And it's like opening a door. You open it a little bit, and then it opens a little bit more, like when you make stories.
Estelle, thank you so much for opening the door to the world, the fascinating world of puppetry for me. I've been wanting to have this conversation with you since I met you, I think it was last year. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you would love people to know about puppets? Oh, look, there's a lion. You really
and
do.
You see, he was so lovely, and I saw him in a shop window. So I took it home and I cut this open, took out all the stuffing, made it so I could put my fingers in. And the head is hollow, it's got a bit of wool in, and I sewed a piece of cloth on the front. So now it's a puppet.
Yes, look at that. With a tail and everything.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you would love people to know about puppetry as we wrap up? That we haven't
just
discussed?
a quotation. Where did I put that quotation of Steiner's? Huh? That it's a remedy against the ravages of this day. Yeah, puppetry is a remedy against the damage of modern civilization. It must unfold and develop the fantasy of the child. And that's hanging on the wall at the Rainbow Puppet Theatre. And above that, I've just put, the small child is at the mercy of its environment, which it imitates completely. Therefore, everything surrounding the child should be worthy of imitation. Morality must permeate our work, and whatever is presented should be true, beautiful, and good.
And that's a quote that you wrote, is it?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Estelle?
And then at the back of the theatre, there, I don't know if you can see, there's the theatre.
It's a bit blurry. You can go back. Yes, I can
blurry.
see the theatre again, and then yes, with the stage and the chair for the storyteller.
And then at the back for the puppet, this I wrote, this is for the puppeteers. Lord, help us to serve thy work by bringing healing to the children in these troubled times. May we also serve thy little people, in inverted commas, with joy and gratitude, doing each our best at all times and treating them with the respect they deserve. May this theatre be regarded as holy ground, an altar through which we can reveal thy truth, beauty, and goodness. And it is, to me, it's an altar. And it's still, I think, the only permanent puppet theatre in the country, if not in the whole of Africa, I don't know.
Thank you so much.
I'm way into my 90s. And it's the puppetry and the eurythmy, of course, that contribute.
Yes.
And the creativity.
It definitely has contributed to your longevity and your energy. If people want to get hold of you to learn more about puppetry and just converse with you,
they can get hold of me through the Christian community, through the society, through Caroline, through anyone.
All right, I will put the link. Yes, I'll put the link to those organizations in the show notes for anyone who wants to get hold of you. And I thank you very much for your time. Maybe you'd just like to sum up just the last parting comment as we end, is from being so informed by puppetry and anthroposophy, what do you see as our task for us as human beings as we go into the future?
Well, it depends on us, doesn't it? I don't like to make predictions. I mean, it's Arimon's time. And he's supposed to incarnate now. But and Dr. Zalmans, when he was here, Dr. Zalmans van Emichoven, and I got to know him. And he was a very great initiate, huh?
Yes.
And yeah. And he died in Cape Town. He chose to die at the foot of the World Cross. I was very fortunate. I was there just after he died and I could lay him out.
But so you're saying, so our task then as human beings going forward is really up to us, that we need to...
Of course it's up to us. Good heavens, I mean, at my age, I don't look backwards all the time. I'm looking forward. How can I help? And it's always that. How can I help?
Yeah.
So it's in meditative life, in our meetings with every single human being. Every single human being. And always, how can I help? How can I help you? How can I help everywhere? How can I help my garden? Got a beautiful garden. How can I help? So I think if every anthroposophist had to say, how can I help every person they meet? And that lovely meditation at the end of the last address, what does it be in time and eternity, pupil in the light of Michael, in the love of the gods, in the heights of the cosmos. Yes, I am in time and eternity, pupil in the light of Michael, in the love of the gods, in the heights of the cosmos. That, or into thy guardianship do I give myself, O Saint Michael. I open myself to thy guidance out of the truest forces of my heart. May this day show me the true meaning of the karma harmonizing force of thy will. I mean, there one can't go wrong.
Thank you, Estelle. I will take that question into my day. How can I help?
Yeah.
With those words.
And everyone. But the only problem is I always feel guilty when I don't help people. Be they beggars or whatever, you can't help everybody except in thought in general.
Yes.
But you meet the people you have to meet, and
You
somehow
do.
one says the things one has to say.
So shall we end there, Estelle?
Well, what better place?
Yes, what better place.
Thank you for joining us on this insightful adventure. We look forward to welcoming you to Anthroposophical Conversations, where together we will unlock timeless wisdom and discover new horizons of understanding. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes as we unravel the secrets of the human experience and delve into the extraordinary world of Rudolf Steiner's anthroposophy.